It began with a faint signal. In the cold vacuum of space, a single cryptic transmission reached the edges of the Milky Way. It wasn't much, a string of numbers and symbols, pulsing in a pattern that screamed intelligence, but not one that could be deciphered easily. To the listening species that had spent millennia seeking contact with others, it was the discovery of a lifetime. A signal coming from Earth, a planet once thought to be barren, primitive, and insignificant in the cosmic scale. The alien species, known as the Zigmer, had been at the forefront of galactic exploration. Their race was advanced beyond imagination, with a technology that could bend space and time, a civilization that spanned hundreds of star systems. They had encountered countless species over the centuries, many of them more primitive than Earth, but none as intriguing as this one. The Zigmer, like most other species, had heard the rumors. Humans were unpredictable, emotional, and unstable. But they were also, perhaps, the most fascinating thing in the galaxy. The decision was made swiftly. An expedition was launched. Their ship, the Zarathar, a massive vessel capable of housing an entire armada, made its way toward the blue planet. It was an easy decision: observe, learn, and if necessary conquer. The Zigmer had never encountered a species that was a threat to their dominance. But Earth was different. The signal was chaotic, raw, and full of potential. A planet that, if harnessed, could offer unimaginable power. By the time they arrived, the Zigmer were prepared. Their reconnaissance ships were cloaked, their sensors set to maximum range, as they scanned Earth for signs of life. They knew they would need a foothold, a careful approach. But when the first of their ships broke the upper atmosphere, something peculiar occurred. It wasn't a weapon that greeted them, but a flash. A strange electromagnetic pulse, a silent shockwave that spread across the skies of Earth, short-circuiting their ship's sensors and jamming their communications. The Zigmer had expected technological defenses, but not something of this magnitude. Then, out of the fog of interference, they saw the humans. They had expected weak, insignificant creatures, those that would cower in fear at the sight of superior beings. But the humans, they did not flinch. The city lights below the Zigmer ships flickered, but not with fear. It was as though the world had awakened to their presence. In every corner of the planet, massive energy readings surged. Power grids hummed in strange new frequencies. Even the oceans, from space, seemed to stir in response to their arrival. The Zigmer, confident in their technological superiority, were ready to move forward. They descended, their landing ships cutting through the skies in perfect precision. Their mission was simple: communicate, assess, and decide whether to integrate Earth into their galactic empire or neutralize the threat. But as they landed, their machines, perfect and resilient, began to glitch. The ground beneath their feet hummed with an energy they couldn't comprehend. Their AI assistants, usually flawless in their execution, froze. Their weapons systems went haywire. The Zigmer's leader, known as Commander Vashkor, stood on the desolate plains of Earth's wilderness, looking up at the strange sky. There was no doubt that the humans had done something. But what? The first contact was not what the Zigmer expected. It was a shock, a jolt that rattled their core. Commander Vashkor barked orders, demanding that the alien force retreat to analyze the situation. But as their ships began to take off, another anomaly occurred. Massive, undetectable gravitational shifts spread across the Earth. A gravitational pull so strong that it felt like the planet itself was pushing back against their presence. With no warning, their ships were flung out of orbit. One by one, Zigmer vessels plummeted back to the surface, crashing with an intensity that shook the ground for miles. Onlookers, both alien and human, watched in horror as the remnants of the Zigmer fleet lay scattered, burning in a chaotic mess of metal and flame. And then the humans arrived. Unarmed but unafraid, they walked toward the wreckage, faces illuminated by the flickering flames. It wasn't anger they felt. It was something far more terrifying. The humans were not scared. They were intrigued, curious, perhaps excited. The Zigmer were no longer the ones in control. As Vashkor lay beneath the burning wreckage of his ship, His last thought before losing consciousness was a simple question. How had this happened? The humans, the so-called primitive species, had just sent them crashing to their knees. They had come to conquer. Now, they were running for their lives. And the humans? They had just begun to show their true potential. You said. The Zigmar were not accustomed to failure. They had conquered dozens of worlds, each one seemingly more advanced than the last. Their technology was designed to subdue, control, and assimilate. Never had they faced a species that had managed to repel them so decisively. In the days following their crash, the Zigmar scrambled to repair what was left of their ships, but it was clear that their technology was incompatible with Earth's mysterious energy. The electromagnetic pulses that had crippled their vessels showed no sign of abating, and the strange gravitational forces continued to tug at their ships, preventing them from gaining altitude. The Zigmar had not only underestimated Earth, but they had underestimated the planet's very nature. Commander Vashkor, though wounded, rallied what remained of his force. The Zigmar had never before been forced into such a humiliating retreat. There was no time to dwell on failure. They had to understand what had just happened, and why. While the Zigmar worked in secrecy, attempting to adapt to Earth's environment, the humans were busy too. Word of the alien attack spread rapidly across the planet. Panic surged for a time, but the fear quickly transformed into something more, an undeniable sense of triumph. The world had fought back. The world had won. What no one realized at the time was that the defeat of the Zigmar was only the beginning. Earth had not only repelled an alien invasion, it had awakened something within itself. The very forces that had thwarted the Zigmar were not simply random occurrences. They were an ancient power, a hidden force embedded in the fabric of the planet itself. Humans had always sensed it through their myths, their legends, their religions, but they had never fully understood it. The planet had always been more than it seemed, and now the dormant energies were beginning to stir. The first signs of this awakening appeared subtly at first. In cities across the globe, people experienced strange dreams, visions of immense cosmic energy. There were whispers of humans developing new inexplicable abilities. Telekinesis, heightened senses, even the ability to manipulate technology with nothing but their minds. The scientific community was baffled. Governments were in a state of panic. No one could explain the sudden surge in human capabilities. But then, it wasn't just the humans that felt the shift. The aliens did too. Back in the ruins of the Zigmar fleet, the survivors began to see more than just the physical damage to their ships. Their sensors, when they worked, began picking up something else. Energy readings that had never been seen before. Unstable, erratic bursts of power emanating from the very planet they had tried to conquer. It was as if Earth itself was alive, reacting to the Zigmar's presence. Vashkor sat in the heart of his damaged ship, poring over the data. He knew that if the Zigmar were to survive on Earth, they would need to understand this power. It was unlike anything they had encountered in all their years of galactic conquest. Earth had its own defense system, an ancient, dormant entity that could only be described as the planet's soul. Desperation filled the Zigmar leader. There was a growing realization. The planet itself wasn't just a resource waiting to be exploited. It was a force to be reckoned with. And humans were the key to unlocking it. They had somehow become attuned to the planet's frequencies, and in doing so, they had gained access to its power. In a way, the humans were now one with the Earth, an inseparable bond forged through the planet's energy. As the Zigmar worked feverishly, attempting to reverse engineer the strange forces at play, the humans were not idle. Across the globe, people began to form connections, communicating not through traditional means, but through thought. Governments scrambled to control the situation, but the very force they sought to suppress only grew stronger. Then came the revelation. A group of scientists working in the remote regions of South America discovered something buried deep within the Earth's crust. It was an artifact, old, alien in design, and unmistakably powerful. It was a device not unlike the Zigmar's technology, but it was unlike anything the Zigmar had ever built. It radiated a kind of energy that was foreign, unquantifiable, and yet undeniably potent. The discovery of the artifact sent shockwaves through the global community. Whoever controlled the artifact would have control over the new powers, control over the very energy that had repelled the Zigmar. It was not just a weapon, it was the key to everything. The human race, once thought to be insignificant, was now in possession of something far more powerful than any of the alien invaders could imagine. But Vashkor wasn't finished. He knew that the only way to win was to learn, to adapt, to understand the human connection to Earth. And that meant one thing: infiltration. If the Zigmar were to survive, they would have to change their approach. They could no longer rely solely on technology. They would need to harness the power of Earth itself, something that, at the moment, seemed impossible. And so, the true battle for Earth was about to begin. The Zigmar, faced with forces beyond their understanding, would need to evolve or perish. And the humans? They would face a challenge unlike any they had ever imagined, a fight not just for survival, but for their very future. You said. The world trembled as the discovery of the alien artifact spread like wildfire across the globe. Every major nation scrambled to stake their claim on the powerful object hidden deep within the heart of the Amazon jungle. Its discovery was both a blessing and a curse. Humanity now held the key to unimaginable power, but with it came an avalanche of consequences. Governments, corporations, and shadowy organizations vied for control, each seeking to harness the energy of the artifact for their own purposes. The world was on the brink of chaos. Meanwhile, the Zigmar, licking their wounds, were silently planning their next move. Their technological expertise was vast, but against the raw, unpredictable energy emanating from Earth, they were helpless. Commander Vashkor, now back on his feet, understood the harsh truth. Earth was not simply a planet, it was a weapon. The artifact was merely a small part of a much larger, far more powerful mechanism embedded in the planet's very core. The Zigmar had to learn its secret if they were to survive. To make matters worse, the humans, as if by instinct, began to awaken new abilities that were linked to the artifact's energy. They became more than just passive observers. Through the artifact, they were becoming connected to the planet in ways no one could predict. It was as if Earth itself was evolving along with them, and the balance of power had irrevocably shifted. The first signs of this new human power were subtle. People who had never trained a day in their life suddenly displayed extraordinary feats of strength and endurance. Some were able to control fire, while others manipulated the air around them. A select few had visions, cryptic glimpses into the future, like a sudden wave of clarity that allowed them to see things others could not. These were not mere coincidences. This was something deliberate. But with great power came great danger. As humanity's connection to Earth deepened, so did the stakes. There was no going back. The human race had unlocked a force they barely understood, and it wasn't long before they realized the artifact could also be used as a weapon, one that could level entire cities, wipe out fleets of alien ships, and manipulate the very terrain beneath their feet. But the artifact was not the only force at play. The Zigmar had underestimated the Earth itself. The planet wasn't just reacting to their presence, it was actively repelling them. Vashkor's fleet, now operating in damaged remnants, could not escape the unseen gravitational forces that seemed to pulsate from the very core of the planet. Any attempt to break free of Earth's orbit ended in failure. Ships would veer off course, only to be dragged back by the planet's inexplicable pull. It was as though the Earth itself was holding them captive, forcing the invaders to stay grounded. Frustration boiled within the Zigmar ranks. They had invaded countless worlds, each with its own dangers and defenses. But none had ever been like this. Their technology, their might, was useless against the raw, untapped power of the planet. They had underestimated Earth. Worse, they had underestimated humanity. But there was one last hope: infiltration. The Zigmar had not been idle. While Vashkor and his warriors struggled to regain control of their fleet, a small, secretive team of Zigmar scientists had set up a covert operation near the artifact. Disguised in human forms, they had infiltrated the nearby communities. They were experts in genetic manipulation, able to blend into human society while subtly gathering information about the artifact's energy. They were studying the humans, trying to figure out how the artifact was transforming them and how they might control it for themselves. What they didn't know was that the humans were already one step ahead. A resistance group had formed. It wasn't just governments fighting over the artifact anymore. Ordinary people had begun to realize the true potential of the artifact's power, and many had come to believe that it should not fall into the hands of a single entity, human or alien. They were the ones who had witnessed firsthand the growing powers in their fellow humans, and they had learned quickly that the Zigmer were far from invincible. The leader of this resistance was a former military officer named Samantha Sam Reyes, a woman who had once served as a covert operative for the United States government. She had witnessed the power of the artifact firsthand when her team was sent to secure the site. But it was the artifact's effect on her that truly terrified her. Sam had started to develop strange abilities, enhanced reflexes, the ability to communicate telepathically with others connected to the artifact, and the power to manipulate small amounts of energy with her mind. She knew the artifact was dangerous, but she also knew that humanity's survival depended on using it for the right reasons. As Sam's team grew, they uncovered the truth about the Zigmer. They weren't just after the artifact, they were after Earth itself. The Zigmer had come to enslave the planet, to siphon its energy for their own use. But Earth was not merely a passive object. It was a living, breathing entity, and it had begun to defend itself through the humans it had chosen to empower. The Zigmer's infiltration operation soon became a race against time. As they worked to manipulate human emotions and coerce the governments into handing over control of the artifact, Sam and her resistance fought back, using their newfound powers to sabotage the Zigmer's efforts. The war was now in the shadows, a battle fought not just with weapons, but with minds, with energy, and with the very forces that made Earth a unique and deadly world. Vashkor, watching from the shadows, realized that humanity was no longer a primitive species. They were a threat, an evolving, unpredictable force that had tapped into the very heart of the planet itself. The Zigmer had made their first mistake by underestimating Earth. Now they had made their second. They had underestimated humanity, and the planet's awakening had only just begun. You said. The battlefield had shifted. No longer confined to open confrontations, the war between the Zigmer and humanity was now a covert, intricate struggle. Across the globe, humanity's new powers grew stronger by the day, while the Zigmer's once unstoppable fleet lay scattered and broken, their technology still baffled by Earth's unnatural forces. The invaders had underestimated not only Earth's defenses, but the ingenuity and resilience of the humans who had tapped into it. Sam Reyes, leader of the resistance, knew that time was running out. The resistance's influence was growing, but so was the Zigmer's desperation. The aliens had begun to adapt to Earth's energies, slowly learning how to control their ships and weapons, despite the planet's persistent interference. But it wasn't just the Zigmer who were learning. The artifact, and the strange force that bound humanity to Earth, was causing human powers to evolve faster than anyone had anticipated. The artifact had become the heart of the global struggle. Countries, once united by common cause, now fractured into factions, each eager to claim ownership of the artifact's immense potential. Some wanted to weaponize it. Others, like Sam and her resistance, sought to protect it, ensuring that it would never fall into the wrong hands. But the humans were divided, and in the chaos, the Zigmer saw opportunity. Vashkor, having grown accustomed to failure, now understood the one thing that had eluded him before. Earth was not a place to conquer. It was a place to become one with. Its power was not something to dominate, but something to fuse with. If the Zigmer could learn to integrate their technology with Earth's organic energy, they could bend the planet to their will. And that was where their infiltration efforts came into play. The Zigmer had begun to experiment with the human form. Using their advanced bioengineering, they started to implant their own technology into the bodies of humans, creating hybrid soldiers, half Zigmer, half Earthborn. These hybrids were capable of wielding the planet's raw energy, tapping into the same powers that had repelled the Zigmer's initial invasion. The hybrid strength was unmatched, their abilities enhanced, but there was one flaw they hadn't anticipated. The human mind was still unpredictable. Sam's team had discovered the Zigmer's new operation after intercepting a transmission. The hybrids, they realized, were more than just weapons. They were experiments. The Zigmer had set out to create a breed of soldiers that could fuse with the planet's energies and operate within the confines of Earth's strange magnetic fields. But the humans they had chosen for their experiments were not as controllable as the Zigmer had hoped. The power of the artifact had affected them in ways the invaders hadn't predicted. These hybrids were unstable, an amalgamation of human unpredictability and alien precision. Some were beginning to resist their programming, their loyalty torn between the Zigmer's control and the newfound connection they had to Earth itself. Sam knew that if the Zigmer succeeded in perfecting their hybrid program, humanity would be lost. The Resistance had to strike before the Zigmer could complete their experiments. They needed to destroy the Zigmer's secret labs, where the hybrids were being created, before the Zigmer could turn the tide of the war. But infiltrating the Zigmer's operations would not be easy. The Resistance had gathered intelligence, and they had learned that the Zigmer were using the very energy of the artifact to shield their operations. The artifact, located deep in the heart of the Amazon, had become a central nexus of power. Its energy reached out, creating protective shields around Zigmer compounds. As Sam's team prepared for the most dangerous mission yet, a strange feeling began to gnaw at her. She had always trusted the artifact's power, believing it was humanity's salvation, but now doubts began to form. Was the artifact truly a gift from Earth? Or was it something older, something more malevolent? The energy it produced had been beneficial to humanity, but was that just part of a larger, hidden agenda? The Zigmer were not the only ones trying to harness it. There were whispers among the Resistance that the artifact was not merely reactive. It had its own purpose, its own will. While Sam wrestled with these questions, something else was happening. As humanity's powers grew, so did the strange dreams and visions. Across the globe, people began experiencing vivid dreams of a dark, towering figure, an ancient being that claimed to be the true ruler of Earth. The figure was not human nor alien, but something between. It was the Earth itself, and it was awakening. The figure spoke of a time when Earth would rise to reclaim its dominance over the galaxy, and humanity would be the instrument of that rise. The dreams were disturbing. They spoke of an apocalyptic future where Earth would become a weapon of mass destruction, its power harnessed and twisted to eliminate any who stood in its way. Humanity was no longer simply awakening. It was becoming the weapon. Sam's team, now more fractured than ever, was torn between using the artifact to fight back against the Zigmer and resisting the pull of the artifact's deeper purpose. Some members of the Resistance saw the visions as a warning. Others believed it was the true path to victory. In the midst of all this uncertainty, a final revelation came from an unexpected source. One of the hybrids, an agent who had once worked for the Zigmer, broke free from their control. His name was Corin, a human-born Zigmer hybrid. Corin had been implanted with enough alien technology to surpass even the most powerful of humans, yet his human consciousness remained intact. He had experienced the same dreams and visions as Sam and the others, and he had come to a disturbing conclusion. The artifact had not just been placed on Earth. It had been waiting for humanity. And now, the Zigmer weren't the only threat. Earth had a plan of its own, and humanity might not be able to control it. The true war was just beginning. The pressure was mounting on all sides. Humanity had awakened something in the heart of the Earth, something far more powerful and dangerous than anyone had realized. The Resistance, divided and fragile, found itself at the center of a storm that it could neither predict nor control. As the Zigmer adapted to Earth's energy and humanity's powers grew ever stronger, the artifact remained an enigma a gift and a curse. Sam Reyes had never felt more uncertain. The visions, the dreams, were getting worse. Earth's ancient presence was growing stronger, as though the planet was calling to its chosen people, urging them to embrace its power fully. The artifact, once viewed as a means of salvation, was now revealed to be a conduit for something much darker. It wasn't just a relic of alien origin. It was the key to the planet's will. And that will was not merciful. Corrin, the hybrid who had broken free from Sigmar control, had provided a chilling revelation. He was not merely a pawn in the Sigmar's grand plan. He was something more, a bridge between two worlds, human and alien, whose mind had become a battleground for the forces at play. His eyes reflected the growing turmoil inside him. He had felt Earth's call, too. The artifact had shown him the truth of Earth's purpose. The planet was awakening to its own power, and it intended to shape the future of the galaxy in its image. Humans, through their connection with the artifact, were to be its agents, its vessels. Sam had always believed that the artifact was humanity's weapon, a tool for survival. But what if it wasn't? What if humanity's real purpose was to serve the planet's darker purpose? Corrin had warned her that this awakening was no accident, and neither was humanity's rapid evolution. Earth had been preparing them for a war against more than just the Sigmar. The question now was, who would survive this battle? Humans? Aliens? Or Earth itself? The resistance, with its fragmented leadership and competing agendas, was growing more disorganized. Some factions, fearful of the visions and Corrin's warnings, wanted to destroy the artifact, wipe out the very source of their new powers. Others, desperate to use the artifact as the ultimate weapon against the Sigmar, pushed for a final assault on their last stronghold in the Amazon. Each side had its own vision of what the future should look like, and no one could agree on how to proceed. Meanwhile, the Sigmar were not idle. Commander Vashkor had recovered from the earlier defeats, and more importantly, had adapted. The Sigmar had learned to integrate their technology with Earth's energy, creating a hybrid system that allowed them to operate their ships and weapons in ways they hadn't thought possible. They could now tap into the strange gravitational and electromagnetic fields that had originally crippled their fleet. But even Vashkor knew they were not in control. Not fully. The Sigmar had learned to manipulate Earth's energy, but they could not become one with it, as humans were starting to. They were still alien invaders, fundamentally disconnected from the planet. Earth's will would never serve them, no matter how advanced their technology became. Vashkor understood something now that he hadn't before. To conquer Earth, he would need to conquer its people. And they were not the same as the species he had faced before. The Sigmar's new strategy would involve infiltration on a much deeper level. If they could turn humanity's own powers against them, they might just stand a chance. To this end, the Sigmar had begun a new project, the Ascendants. These were not hybrids like Corrin. No, these were humans who had fully embraced the power of the artifact. They were individuals who had given themselves willingly to the Sigmar cause, individuals who believed that they could harness Earth's energy more efficiently than any of their fellow humans. The Ascendants were more than just soldiers. They were spiritual leaders, leaders who believed that the only way to truly save humanity was to submit to the alien power and allow it to guide their evolution. The Ascendants were emerging as a new threat. They were not only warriors, but prophets, capable of manipulating the energy around them and commanding legions of followers. These humans were a dangerous, new faction, one that believed they were the true inheritors of the planet's power, and they were ready to lead humanity into a new era. Sam, still grappling with her own doubts, realized that the time for small skirmishes and secretive resistance was over. The war was no longer just about surviving the Sigmar invasion. It was about the future of humanity itself. Was it to be enslaved by the Sigmar or be used as pawns by Earth itself? Or could humanity find a way to control its own destiny without becoming the instrument of destruction? In a desperate bid for answers, Sam and her remaining loyal members of the Resistance made the dangerous decision to travel deep into the Amazon. They had to destroy the Ascendant base before the Sigmar could complete their plan to fully integrate human and alien powers. If the Ascendants succeeded in their mission to channel the artifact's full power, Earth would become a weapon beyond anyone's control. The balance of the galaxy itself could be tipped. The Resistance's journey was perilous. Along the way, they encountered not only Sigmar forces, but also rogue factions of humans who had already embraced the artifact's power, and who now acted as agents of Earth's will. The deeper they ventured into the jungle, the more it felt as though the planet itself was watching them. Trees moved in ways that defied logic. The air hummed with an electric tension, and the very ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with life. At last, they reached the heart of the Sigmar's operations, a towering temple-like structure built around the artifact. But it was too late. The Ascendants were there, waiting. Their leader, a former human general turned zealot, stepped forward. His eyes burned with a strange light, and his voice echoed with a power that was not entirely human. "You are too late, Sam Reyes. The future is already here. Earth will rise, and you will either join us or be swept away." The Resistance had no choice. They would either fight for control of the artifact or let Earth's dark agenda become a reality. But as Sam stared at the Ascendant leader, something within her stirred. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. It was about humanity's soul. The final battle was upon them, and Sam could only wonder which side Earth itself would choose. The battle for Earth's future had arrived, and there was no turning back. The Resistance stood at the precipice of the final confrontation, at the heart of the Amazon jungle, in the shadow of the Sigmar's last stronghold and the Ascendant's temple. The energy of the artifact pulsed in the air like a living entity, resonating with the deep power of the Earth itself. Every step closer to the structure felt like a step into the very soul of the planet. The Earth beneath their feet vibrated with a strange, foreboding energy, and the sky overhead swirled with unnatural clouds, as if the planet was holding its breath. Sam Reyes's mind raced. She knew the Ascendants were not just another enemy to be defeated. They were humans who had willingly embraced the power of the artifact, believing they were the true heirs to Earth's destiny. They had surrendered themselves to a dark and unknowable force. Their leader, a man named General Kale, had once been a respected military officer, but now his eyes were consumed with a divine fervor, the same strange glow that had overtaken other humans who had fully merged with the artifact's power. Kale's voice echoed in Sam's mind like a distant prophecy. "Earth will rise, and those who do not kneel will fall." The Sigmar were not far behind. Their ships, now adapted to Earth's strange energies, loomed in the sky like ominous shadows. But even Vashkor, the Sigmar commander, knew the truth. His forces were no longer the greatest threat to humanity. The Ascendants had become something more, something humanity had never expected. They were no longer allies of Earth, they were its instrument. They were the first of a new kind of human, born of the artifact's power, ready to bring about Earth's rebirth. But Sam wasn't willing to give up. Not yet. As she and the Resistance infiltrated the temple, they encountered little opposition from the Ascendants. The temple, a twisted structure of alien metal and organic matter, seemed alive in a way that unsettled her. It pulsed with the artifact's energy, and everywhere she looked, she saw signs of humanity's transformation, new powers, new capabilities, but all at the cost of their free will. These were no longer the humans she had fought alongside. They had become something else. At the center of the temple, surrounded by an ethereal glow, stood the artifact. It was no longer just a relic. It was the heart of Earth's power, a conduit to its ancient, unstoppable force. Sam's mind buzzed with visions, fragments of knowledge that weren't her own. She saw the planet's history, its struggle for survival through the eons. She saw the war between the old races, the Earth's former rulers who had seeded the galaxy with life, and their eventual retreat as they let the planet evolve on its own terms. But now, Earth had begun to remember its true purpose, to reclaim its dominion, to reshape the universe in its image. General Kale stood before the artifact, his hands raised as though in worship. "We are not just humans anymore," he proclaimed, his voice resonating with a divine, hypnotic cadence. "We are Earth's chosen. We are the heralds of a new age, and the Zigmar are nothing more than the last echoes of a dying empire. The planet calls to us, and we answer. Join us, Sam. Embrace the future. Sam shook her head, her heart pounding. She had seen enough. She could feel the artifact's power creeping into her mind, tugging at her will, attempting to pull her into the same fervor Kale had embraced. But she fought it, channeling every ounce of her humanity to resist. I won't be a pawn in Earth's war, she said, her voice steady, though every word felt like a battle against the artifact's overwhelming pull. I won't let you turn humanity into a weapon. Kale smiled, a twisted grin that seemed to bleed into something ancient and unknowable. It's not about what you want, Sam. It's about what's inevitable. You can't stop what's coming. The Earth is awakening, and with it, a new order will rise. Before Sam could respond, there was a sudden shift in the air, a violent crack of energy as the artifact pulsed, a surge of power that knocked everyone back. The ground shook violently, and for a moment, Sam thought the world itself was collapsing. But then, something extraordinary happened. The sky darkened, and a figure appeared in the center of the temple. It wasn't Kale. It wasn't Sam. It was something else, something far older and more powerful. The figure was tall, its form shrouded in swirling energy, a silhouette made of light and shadow. It was Earth itself, or at least the embodiment of its will. The artifact had not been a mere tool. It was the anchor for something far greater, a force that had lain dormant in the planet for millennia. Now it was awake. The entity spoke, its voice a deep rumble that seemed to shake the very foundation of the Earth. You have awakened me, it said, its voice both awe-inspiring and terrifying. You, Sam Reyes, and your kind, have unlocked the door to a new epoch. The Earth has risen, and you are its firstborn children. But this power is not a gift. It is a covenant. Those who would wield it must serve it. Sam's heart raced as the reality of the situation became clear. The artifact had not chosen humanity to protect Earth. It had chosen humanity to enforce Earth's will. Earth was not merely a passive observer. It was an ancient, sentient force, and it had plans that extended far beyond the survival of its own inhabitants. It wanted to reshape the universe. Kale's voice cut through the air, filled with a sense of triumphant madness. It's here. The age of humanity has begun. Join us, Sam, or be crushed beneath the weight of what's to come. But Sam knew something now that Kale and the Ascendants didn't. Earth had chosen humanity, but not as its servants. It had chosen them as guardians. The true purpose of the artifact was not to grant them power for conquest, but to help them protect the galaxy from forces far older and more dangerous than the Zigmar. In that moment, Sam made a choice. She would not be controlled by Earth's will, nor would she let humanity be consumed by it. She reached out, touching the artifact with her bare hands. The energy surged through her, and for a split second, she understood everything. The artifact, Earth's true intentions, the endless war that would ensue if it was allowed to continue. But in that instant, she also understood how to break the cycle. With a final surge of willpower, Sam ripped the artifact from its pedestal. The world trembled, and the Earth itself seemed to scream in protest. The power of the artifact pulsed violently, and for a moment, Sam thought she would be consumed by its energy. But then, something unexpected happened. The artifact shattered. The ground cracked, and the temple collapsed around them. The energy that had once flowed so freely began to dissipate, its connection to Earth severed. The strange, ancient force that had been guiding humanity's evolution began to recede, its presence retreating into the depths of the planet. The Ascendants collapsed, their power fading as the link to Earth's will was broken. Kale screamed in fury, but there was no stopping what Sam had done. The artifact was gone, its power shattered. In the aftermath, Sam stood in the ruins, her body drained, but her heart resolute. Earth was still alive, still a living, breathing force, but it was no longer a force of domination. Humanity had broken free from the planet's control. The war was over, but as Sam looked out over the horizon, she knew one truth. The battle had ended, but